All right, I'm Juanita and welcome back to the Knit Guru. This week we're going to be making 2 coffee cozies because what is August? I mean, other than my birthday, August is the lead up to September, and what do we know about August and September? We've got back to school in America and we've got Father's Day over here. So we're doing Coffee Cozy Week because teachers and dads are difficult. They're very difficult people to give for. So we're going to start with this one. This is our dad cozy. I don't know if I've spun this in the right direction to have it read. If you know, you know, or if I haven't. This one here is one colour. It's using a scrap of yarn. We're talking less than 25 grams. At the moment, I'm working on trying to find and create as many projects as I can with less than 25 grams of yarn. So these are both going to be very short projects to knit. Both very similar. They're both going to have a chart and they're going to have some knitting instructions afterwards. This one here, we're using just simple knit and purl stitches to create our lettering in like a relief stitch. And it's a very, very quick knit. And it's easy to just say, here you go, Dad. Happy Father's Day. Or as I did with my father last year before last, Christmas at some point. I gave him one of these, and he's like, "What's this?" I was like, "It's a whiskey cozy." Like, "What's a whiskey cozy?" And I said, "It's a thing that you put around your cup to keep your cup from burning your fingers or the condensation." He's like, "What does it have to do with whiskey?" And I'm like, "I bought you a bottle of whiskey." So, I thought I was hilarious, and he thought it was the best gift ever. And now he has a coffee holder. As you may notice, this is just like a regular coffee cup. This is the same size as those takeaway coffee cups we get over here. This will fit on your Starbucks tall ones and that sort of thing. It's just going to be a nice, convenient size. If you've got the slightly smaller cups, not the much smaller espresso ones, but the slightly smaller ones, the smalls over here, it covers the whole length, but you'll find you can still set your coffee cup down. So let's make this coffee cup cozy and see how we go. Right, so what we're going to use here is this DK yarn. This is, well, I've been using this yarn for everything at the moment. These are 4mm needles. This happens to be a circular needle, but this is a knit flat project. I just happen to have these needles on hand. Right, now here's our chart. Every time there's a dot is a purl stitch. And every time there's a knot dot, the knot dots are knit stitches. You may also notice there's these grey lines. Now these grey lines are stitches that don't exist, or they don't exist yet. There's some little symbols in here, which are to increase a stitch. And so these grey lines show where there isn't a stitch at the start, but there is a stitch at the end. So what you need to do when following this chart is to just carry on ignoring those greyed out lines. So what we're going to do here is we're going to cast on 36 stitches. We're going to end with 44 stitches, but we start with 36 stitches. So what we're going to do here is we're going to cast them on and we're going to do a 2 by 2 rib for the first 6 rows. So here's our 36 stitches on our needle, all ready to go. So what we're going to do is we're going to knit 2 and then purl 2 all the way across this row until we've got 6 rows of the knit 2, purl 2 rib. This is going to give us the little cuff at the bottom of our coffee cozy. Then what we're going to do is we're going to be looking at our first row where we've got an increase. So to do our increase, we're going to knit into the front of the stitch. Then we're going to move our needle around to the back. And we're going to go into the back half of this stitch here. That's just going to mean that we're going to end up with an increase that is just quite a tight increase that doesn't seem to show too much. They're just my favourite for using in this situation. So that's a knit 8 and then knit front and back of your 9th stitch. We're going to do this over the whole row, and that's going to give us a total of 40 stitches at this point. And then what we're going to do when we get to the other end is we're going to be working on our chart. Now our chart, when we have a look at it again, every time we get to one of these dots, those dots are a purl stitch on the right side. But because we're going to be purling across our first row, all of the blank ones are actually purl stitches, and then our dot ones are knit stitches when we're on the wrong side. So we're actually going to knit 3 Then we're going to purl the dots across Dad, then we're going to knit the gaps, and then we're going to move all the way across. Hopefully this will make sense, because when we're knitting, we're going from this side across, and that's where we're purling the dots. And when we're on the purl side, or the wrong side, we're going to be knitting the dots and purling the other bits, if that makes sense. Hopefully you'll see as we start getting into practice here. So here we are on our purl side, and we're going to start by following along with our chart, and we're purling away. There we go, purling, purling, purling. Now we get to where we are on the chart. I'm just looking at my chart on the iPad, and we're going to change into a knit stitch. So there we go, there's a knit stitch, there's another knit stitch, there's another knit stitch, there's another knit stitch. You'll see we're starting to get a bit of a pattern going as we form the bottom of our D for Dad. When we get to the end of our bottom of the D for Dad, what we're going to do is we're just going to stop doing the knits, we're going to bring our yarn forward, and then we're going to carry on following the chart and doing our purl stitches. That's going to mean that those dots are raised up on the good side and they're flat on the back. I hope that makes sense. So we're just going to carry on across the row, just following that chart. And if you're following along on the chart, this is going across the chart from left to right when we're going on the purl sides. So you'll be able to see what's going on. Now, I'm fairly certain that I made a boo-boo while taking this footage because, again, I was recovering from concussion during the filming of this. So there is a miscount. So what we're going to do here is we're actually just going to work backwards. And we're going to work backwards and we're going to fix up this stitch here. So I'm just going to undo some of my stitches, which is always fun to watch. But then again, there we go. Why is it that undoing my stitches is actually a little bit easier to see than when I'm trying to knit them properly? There I am. You can actually tell that I am physically thinking in this moment. Yep, actual thoughts are taking place on the screen. Right, okay, we're now going to check the pattern again, and this is where I made my boo-boo because I didn't put in enough purl stitches. I needed 4 and I only did 3, which would have meant when I got to the end of the line, I wouldn't have had enough stitches left over, and I would have been like, oh, is the pattern wrong? Or is Juanita wrong? We will never know. So it's always good to stop and actually just double check. I do this a lot when following a crochet pattern as well as when following along a knit pattern, but particularly in this one, it takes a while to just make sure that you're thinking it through as to which ones are the knit stitches and which ones are the purl stitches. So as we get to the end of this row, which, you know, it feels like 40 stitches is not a lot, right up until you're trying to put some commentary to go with some 40 knit stitches. When we get to the end of this week, we've got another coffee cozy pattern because we're really close to Father's Day over here in New Zealand, and we're really in the middle of back to school over in America. So I figure we've got a back to school / teacher appreciation post for the end of the week, and for this end of the week, we're doing a Father's Day project, which won't take you long to make. I gave these to Dad one year as a whiskey cozy. Okay, so as you can see when we look at our pattern here, we're about to do this next section. And in this next section, we're going to be going from the right over to the left of the stitch of the chart. So we're knitting the ones that are blank and we're purling the ones that are dots. So we're going to start seeing that the pattern is going to start appearing. Now, what's going to happen when our coffee cozy is stretched out over a cup is that these letters are going to stand out as embossed into the knitting itself. It's not going to stand out so much when you're just looking at it flat because the long stems, for lack of a better description, of the D in particular, the purl stitches will kind of pull things back rather than push them forward, but when it's the long strand across the bottom of the D, it actually pops further forward. So it does need to be stretched out somewhat in order to be able to read Dad quite clearly on this one, but it's just the nature of the letters that we're using. Now there's just 3 letters on this one here. Of course, you're welcome to make up your own charts, or you're welcome to leave me a message and just put in a request. Is there something you want me to write across the bottom there because you call your dad Pa? Well, then in which case we'll put Pa or something along those lines. So just flick me a message and we'll see what we can do because it's not really a big deal for me to fix it up for you. If you've got an idea, I mean, you're welcome to do it yourself too, but it depends whose time, who's got the time. So, right, what we've got here is you'll see that we've got our purl stitches coming forwards and we've got our knit stitches looking nice and flat. So they're knit stitches when they're on the wrong side and they're purl stitches when they're on the right side. So here we are a few rows in and we can start see there's our part of A coming through in the middle. But you can see it's rather hard to see that we've got a D at the start, and then we've got an A in the middle, and then a D at the end. From this distance, you can read it a little bit more clearly as we're getting further up the letters. The A is probably the clearest, but you'll notice that the legs of the A push back, whereas the bit across the front of the A pulls forward. And it's just the nature of what the stitches are in and around it to create that three-dimensional effect. So when we're stretched out, we're going to see it much more clearly, particularly on the D's. So there we go. That's it finished on in our actual relief pattern. So now we're going to do another row with some increases. That takes us up to 44 stitches. Now we're going to put another band. So another 6 rows of this cuff and the 2x2 rib. And then once we've got that, we're going to cast off. Now you're going to cast off in pattern. So that means that if it's a knit stitch, you're going to knit it. If it's a purl stitch, you're going to purl it and just continue your casting off all the way along, but just keeping that pattern to go. Once you've got it all finished, we're going to roll it around and you're going to stitch up this side. Now I like to leave my yarn tails long enough to actually do this stitching and seaming, and that way it feels like there's only, well, I don't have to attach the yarn at one end. All I have to do is weave it in at the other. And then we're done. All we need to do now is to put this on our coffee cup.
Right, so hopefully you enjoyed making this coffee cup cozy. At the end of this week, because if I get this right, this is a Monday, and then on Friday we're going to make one for teacher appreciation that's slightly harder than this one, uses colours rather than different knit and purl stitches to create a picture, and you're going to thoroughly enjoy it. So for now, over here is a video that YouTube thinks that you might want to watch. Here is a playlist, and it's a playlist of things. I might try and put together a playlist of Father's Day items. We'll see. I don't know at this point. And up there you can click subscribe if you want more of this. Let's call it content. Let's call it content. And I will see you on Friday for a teacher appreciation coffee cozy. Bye.